Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Thanks for coming back, and thanks for being on time. I know as a Catholic, one of the 7 deadly sins is the sin of pride. But I have to tell you, I'm enormously proud of the contingent of people we have put together to speak to us through the Alumni Senate. We've heard from 3 world-class university leaders. We've heard from a world-class basketball coach. And now we're about to hear from a world-class expert in the field of volunteerism. We are very fortunate to have with us this afternoon Jeff Hoffman. Jeff is currently the president of Jeff Hoffman and Associates. And before I go on, how many people are Harry Potter fans? Okay, just keep that thought. Jeff is an accomplished corporate executive who's developed a expertise in the areas of corporate philanthropy, human resources, operations, special programs and events, and he and his firm now specialize in global philanthropy and civic engagement. Before starting on his own as an entrepreneur 2 years ago, he spent 31 years in the Walt Disney Company. His most recent assignment there was as vice president of Disney Worldwide Outreach. He had global responsibility for Disney's philanthropy, community relations, and cause marketing activities, including its award-winning volunteer program, Disney Volunteers. Jeff's educational background includes training at Pepperdine University, the University of California, Los Angeles, and the University of Southern. Its name should not be mentioned. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an enormous privilege to introduce you to Mr. Jeff Hoffman.
California. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a true pleasure to be here at the University of Notre Dame. What a gorgeous campus that you have. I got here yesterday afternoon, a beautiful afternoon, took a stroll through the campus, happened to walk in the basilica when the choir was practicing, and I was the only person in the basilica. So can you imagine when I open the doors and I walk in and no one is there and the choir is above me?
That's not usual welcome.
Oh, is it? Well, good. Well, thank you. I always love a good welcome wherever I are. In fact, in Disney terms, we would call that exceeding guest expectations. But very, very pleased to speak with you today on leadership and volunteerism. Both are very much passions of mine and activities that I've been involved with for many, many years. And you all are true volunteers. The fact that you are representatives of the university, the representatives of your fellow alumni all around the world, continuing on the amazing tradition of this great university. When I was brushing up to come here today and looking at some of the information, I was so impressed that 80% of your student body volunteers. That's incredible. That's a huge, huge number. And that 10% of your graduates go on to spend a year of service after college graduation. Again, an incredible number. And then I'm sure that those numbers and percentages continue on in life and have learned some of the various works that you have done or that you do through your individual clubs, which I just think is so critical to take on the mission, really, of the university, where service is such an important component of it. And today in 2012, where that service, that volunteering, is needed more now than ever. Our country was built by volunteers. If you look at the writers of the Declaration of Independence, those who created the Constitution, our forefathers were volunteers. And we in the United States really have been at the forefront of that movement. If you've read de Tocqueville or others on the compassion of the American people to give back. And that has really spread around the world. And I know there are quite a few of you here from outside of the U.S., which is great. And I've been fortunate to spend quite a bit of time over the years outside of the U.S. encouraging people to get involved in their communities and volunteer. And this spirit of volunteerism is spreading around the world with lightning speed. And a lot of it is because we have been able to demonstrate how showing concern, compassion, using our expertise for our common or our fellow mankind can truly make that added difference in life. So what I want to talk to you about today is volunteering and service, and how in particular this can help you as presidents of your clubs around the world, because you are volunteer leaders. And there's a couple of things that I want to reference in here. First of all, on the program for your meeting here, I love the quote from Father Hesburgh. The world always needs energy, imagination, concern, idealism, dedication, commitment, service. That's a great quote. I'm sure I will use that again. I had not heard that until the program book came out, but it ends with service, which is so important. If you look at the letter in that program from your leader, Dolly, where she talks about you are the grassroots leaders of Notre Dame. And that is so true. Let me jump back and tell you a little bit about my own history with leadership and this very institution. I currently serve on the board of the Points of Light Institute, which is an organization that is basically the umbrella of volunteering and service here within the United States. Operates 250 affiliates, volunteer centers, operates a great youth service program called Generation On. AmeriCorps alums, works with corporations on how they can get their employees engaged. Well, I've been fortunate to be involved in this organization for practically all of its history, from the time when Michael Eisner was a founding board member of this, when he was appointed to that position by the first President Bush. But then I helped service those activities, and then went on the board myself after Michael went off. But when I was on the board for my first term in the mid to the late 90s, there was someone that you all know who was a fellow board member of mine, and that was Monk Malloy. And I got to know him fairly well. In fact, in 1997, it will be 15 years ago next week, there was an event in Philadelphia called the President's Summit for America's Future, where all the living presidents at the time came together in front of Independence Hall to recommit the American people to volunteerism and service. President Clinton was the president at the time, but we also had George Herbert Walker Bush with us, Nancy Reagan, because unfortunately Ronald Reagan at that time, his Alzheimer's was too far along, and we had Jimmy Carter as well. So it was just an incredible opportunity where all of these people came together. The event was chaired by General Colin Powell, who today is still a leader in this movement, specifically around children and youth, which he and his wife, Alma Powell, are doing incredible work. But I spent an entire day with Monk Malloy traveling around Philadelphia a couple of days before the actual event took place, and looking at various types of locations, everything from Ronald McDonald House to the Boys and Girls Clubs and other things, to see how the American public were volunteering in their own way, primarily focused on helping youth in the future. So I was very, very honored to be able to have gotten to know Monk Malloy in that way, and really was, other than football, which I guess I shouldn't mention in front of this group, was my true first introduction to the University of Notre Dame and that, focus of service and volunteering that you all have. So let me give you just a few points on the state of volunteering in the world. I think you'll find some of these statistics interesting. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the statistics, but I think based on the work you do in being volunteer leaders might help in how we can all be more effective in what we do. There's a report that is put out every year by the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is a government agency, and they put this together with the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The national volunteer rate has remained steady at about 26% for the past 5 years. So you look at 26%. In my opinion, that's not very good. That means that 74% of the American public are not volunteering. And that's a problem, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But I also think with any problem, that's a real opportunity for all of us. If you look at the rates of volunteerism based on where people live, 28% of the people who volunteer, 28% are rural, 27.5% are suburban, and 23% are in urban locations. The median hours served in 2010 for all of those was a little over 51 hours per year. The largest percentage of volunteers comes through religious organizations at 35%. We also see that those who are volunteering for educational organizations is about 27%. Interesting that you all are an intersection of those two highest volunteer areas. High school graduates are more likely to volunteer than non-high school graduates. Homeowners are more likely to volunteer than non-homeowners. And one figure that I really do like is about 65% of volunteers maintain their service for over a year. So I think that's an important thing to know. But let's talk about that for a little bit, because again, what concerns me about those numbers is the fact, not so much that, yes, we're thankful for those people like you who are serving, but it's those people who aren't serving. And how can we, in our roles, be catalysts to get more people involved? And I think those numbers are symptomatic of something that concerns me a lot about society right now, and is also the root cause of so many issues that we have, is so many people have abdicated their responsibility to others. And therefore, as government has provided more services, as nonprofits have provided more services, therefore people don't feel like they necessarily have to step up to the plate like they used to, which is concerning. I mean, just think of how many people don't know their neighbors anymore, and how the whole concept of neighboring, where you know your neighbors, you know who they are, you have a personal relationship with them, you care about them. If you have a neighbor down the street who's sick, you might step in. Can I go to the grocery store for you? Can I do whatever? If you don't know your neighbors, you can't do that. If you don't know other people, then you don't necessarily have a personal relationship where you're carrying that you're going to take responsibility for being a part of your greater community. And this is where I think community engagement is so critical, whether you're involved through your alumni clubs or chambers of commerces or your churches or schools, other types of nonprofit organizations. The more you are interacting and the more everybody else is, the more vibrant the community is. The more vibrant the community is, you most likely will see a better high school graduation rate, you will see lower unemployment rates, you will see less people going into the criminal justice system. So there's a lot of positive byproducts, and I'm not going to bore you with a lot of research that has been done out there that show that the people who are involved in their communities, create healthier communities and create healthier people themselves. In fact, yesterday, Points of Light announced a new statistic that was done that let's see if I can get this right, that people who volunteer are 42% happier than people who don't volunteer. And again, I think that's part of that interaction and that helping others to be successful, which also, in my opinion, helps yourself. So that whole concept of abdicating responsibility, which is the cause of so many root issues that we face not only in our own country, but around the world. I mean, I know there's some people from London here. And are the London people in the audience right now?